welcome back to Bit by Bit, and thanks for joining me on this video where I will just briefly go through this example of Polyline. You can find it here under examples. It's the first example, which is called Polyline between 3 points. What I'm gonna do is I'll briefly discuss the code behind this. It's a really short algorithm. The essence will be clear really fast, I hope. But it's still worth a while to look at it a little and understand what is happening. If you're a beginner, that's very important to realize how bit by bit works and the fundamentals behind it. So let's dive into this first example that we have. So the first thing you see is this draw grid component. We will not focus on that because it's only responsible for creating the grid that you see on the ground here. So all those white lines, they are made by that component, and it just helps us orient in space better. The second component is scene background, and that's just black for now. You can always change it to whatever color you like. Well, you see that now it's orange, but preferably I find something dark a little bit nicer. So let's get back to dark gray. And now the real things begin. So those two components are just setting up a bit the scene for us. And to construct the polyline, we need, well, 3 points. And those 3 points are defined in space in X, Y, Z coordinates. And that's what we do here. So this part of the algorithm just creates a list of 3 points and assigns that to a variable. There are few concepts here that I've mentioned. There's this list thing involved, and then there's also a variable involved. If you are not familiar with variables or lists, we will be making also videos about that. So please subscribe, and we will be explaining that in the short notice. But so just very briefly, what happens is that you can construct lists in bit by bit just by having this create list component. And you can do that by going here to lists, and you find this component here. You can drag it to the canvas and begin adding things to a list. If you need more elements, so standard is a list of 3 elements. If you need more, you click the settings button and you drag and drop an item to a list, and it appears as an additional input. That way you can create lists of, well, static size lists basically, but if you need to add more items, you just drag and drop them. I think that's quite clear. How it works in practice is that, so if I would like to create an additional point of my polyline, I would go here, I would drag to the place where I want that point to appear. If it's the second, then it's the second. You see that then the second item appears and the remainders are filled. But so for now, we can just say, okay, we want to create additional point in this list. And what I will do, I will just copy paste this point component. And the point component you can find here under points, create. You see here a few variants, but this is the component that creates point. It's a XYZ component. And what happens is that I can now say, okay, I will create the point on X1 and Z2, for example. And if I play this code now, you will see that my polyline became a bit more interesting. It's not 3 points anymore, but 4. And how that works is that you first create the list of 4 points, or 3 as you saw before. Then you put that list to a variable. It's a sort of container that can transport data to multiple other components, and it's very visible here. So points for polyline is a variable. You can find all the variables here in this variables category. Now this points for polyline category or variable gets assigned to draw points component to draw those white points on the edges, on the corners of the polyline. And the draw polyline component also expects the same variable, but before it draws the polyline, it has to make a polyline through those points. So, and you see that now the same data that was constructed here is used in two places, and that's sort of wormhole into the blocks, into the other blocks. That's the purpose of the variable. They can contain state. They can be used in multiple other places and as inputs. Well, they can also be updated, of course, but that's the reason why we put that to the variable, and then we use it in this points for polyline, in this draw points component and draw polyline component. That's quite simple. Those draw components can also be used to sort of control the size of the points. We can make them really big, for example. You will see that now those points are really big, and we can say that our polyline is really thick. So you see that many things can be done with those draw blocks. And I think now we went through this whole script. I think you get the point. We touched a little bit the lists, the variables, and also the purpose of that.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Bye.